All right. Well, to kind of formally introduce myself, Matt. Well, in the series, I guess it's called Uncontaminated Sounds, which it's based off of my photographic series. I'm a photographer and visual artist in New York, and I've documented musicians backstage and candid moments of prior to stepping on stage, and that I really love those moments of candidness, and that's what I like go for. And in January, I started this series of trying to get trying to investigate deeper on a deeper level of why artisans, not even just musicians, but craftsmen and artisans and entertainers do what they do. So, well, and so we're here at this point where initially in January I was going in studio or on location and with a camera and shooting, which was nice, where I get to frame it lovely. But right now we're at this situation where I have to do this technology as we spoke, which is a bit clumsy at times. But that's a bit about myself. Matt, I'm recently getting engaged in your work, and of course, so if I guess where to begin, and thank you for taking the time to have this conversation.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to.
So,
Yeah.
so I guess, um, so you have a new project out, or as I understand it, you have a new album out as well. But when did you form your new project, Matt Wilson and his orchestra? I guess. Uh,
Yeah. I don't know about maybe 2 years ago in the summertime here coming up. I was up in the North Woods playing a show with a friend of mine who's kind of a real connector kind of person, just a natural, attracts people. People trust him, and there were a lot of musicians playing in a festival in right on the border of Canada here in Minnesota, and uh, I had been in a rock band for quite a while, and had always played uh, kind of guitar and drum, rockin' music with distorted instruments. Um, but my voice is it's sometimes that was hard for me to cut through with my voice, because my voice is a little more cloudy, a little chalkier. Um, anyway, while I was up north, I saw this harp player that I had actually collaborated with very quickly, but in a fun way, at a previous time. But I saw her play again uh, up in the woods outside, and it was, it had that kind of enhanced beauty to it of just being under the stars. And it reminded me what a great player is. She is a masterful harp player, and then also how apt she was at arranging music quickly, you know. And then also along the way during that weekend, that long weekend in the woods, so beautiful, I also came across another guy that I'd met a long time ago and had seen him play several times, but it was kind of also all new up in the woods. I saw him singing with his wife, and so beautifully. He's a banjo player. His banjo playing was it had a real groove to it, like a drummer that's got a real a groove, something heavy. He had that, and so then when I got back home, I just had it in my mind. Wow, what if I had my kind of soft, cloudy voice surrounded by a huge harp that goes up high and goes down low, but it has a hole in the middle, kind of that all plucked instruments have.
mm,
And then the banjo is kind of this kind of drum set element. Friend of mine plays bass very well, and I kind of brought him in on it. And the thing I discovered when we played is that uh, Fela, the harp player, and I knew the banjo player could sing. I kind of wasn't even thinking about this far ahead, but they could sing really well, and it just kind of became this natural group. And at first I was just going to bring in songs that I had recorded over time. Um, my my catalog, my oeuvre. I was going to bring that to them, and just and this would just be an interesting way for me to sing my songs. But it was so exciting to hear this sound that we had, because it was actually it was a sound. We had a thing.
Yeah.
It's like like if in photography, I'm sure you take a picture, you go like, I don't know if that's good or not, but damn, that's got a look to it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so this had that sort of thing where I was like, at first it was like, because it's unusual, and I wasn't sure if this was me or not, but had a sound, and that's a big thing. So anyway, pretty soon I started bringing in my original material, and we played our first show about a year and a half ago, and then we played a lot of shows, and did a lot of recording pretty quickly, and made this record that's we got out right now.
Which is well, which is great, but then you kind of just timing is kind of synced up with but how has
Yeah, literally, we
yeah.
like we like it. They wheeled it to the curb of our record company is Pravda in Chicago, and they on the day that basically the whole world shut down.
Oh,
Like it arrived.
you're like, yeah,
It's
of
hard.
course. Yeah. But how have you been distributing, or the label? How have they been distributing? Is it just online sales, or I guess, or have you seen any sales during this time span? I guess.
Oh yeah, no, there's been some sales, but it's not what we had hoped for. But it's been getting out, and it's all been people just ordering it to come to their door. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
one delivery at a time, basically.
Well, I feel like I've been listening to it the last few days, and I really enjoy your sound, and just like I can't feel bad listening to it. It just makes me joyful. It's
Oh,
yeah,
thanks.
it's really different than, and it's just like it resonates with me, and I really love that harp and banjo combination. And
Isn't that weird?
yeah, and it's your vocals too. It's just like everything ties in, either perfectly. So I know I'd love to. I can imagine you're missing the live performances. I guess, right? That. I could
Yeah, I mean,
imagine that.
we had like a at the whole our whole well, you know fall, I guess, or was leading up to this release, and we'd booked all these shows, way in advance, and we had this just a whole big string of dates starting on March 20th, and that all just got wiped out.
Oh yeah,
And so it was sad. But compared to what other people are going through, it's a joke. It's nothing. Like, but as far as my little music fantasies, it was a blow. But everyone is adapting, and there's plus sides to the getting forced together with my family. It's been pretty fun in some ways.
yeah,
Unexpected ways, and other ways it's disappointing. But
yeah. So I guess, like, let's go back. Like, where did your kind of musical journey begin? Like, what piqued your interest initially? Like, why did you choose music? Or did music choose you? Like, how did it evolve into your current project? If we can just go all the way back or wherever.
Sure. Well, my parents had a couple records in the house. Really, it was albums back then for my age. But we really, I think at the most we had 10 albums. We had a nice stereo. A suburban house. We had a nice stereo, but there's only like 10 records, and so we listened to those. There was a couple Beatle records in there. Beatles, like Sergeant Pepper's, and that scarred me. Because it was just for kids. That's just like candy, basically. So there was that, and then there was a Glenn Campbell record, which is just this weird thing, but that's what my parents had. And it had a couple ballads on it that also, one was an Roy Orbison song called Crying. And I thought that was so cool.
Mm.
But then even better than that one, Glenn Campbell. I mean, I can't even believe I'm talking about him, but it was a record in our house. He had this other song that I think might be the best song ever in the world. And it's called You're My World. And it's written by a guy from Italy called Umberto Bindi.
Mm.
It's been translated every which way, but Glenn does an amazing version of it, but the best version is by a woman named Cilla Black. Cilla Black, You're My World. And that ballad really crushed me. Eventually I became a drummer because I'm kind of a spaz. I've got that, kind of the monkey energy is my side of the things. All yang, no yang or whatever, But anyway, so I became a drummer in 5th grade when there was time to choose an instrument, and played a little solo, a couple months later, and a couple parents praised me like they do, and that meant so much to me. And I've just been kind of chasing that feeling of getting praised from music ever since.
Now, did your parents encourage music in pursuing music as a more of a full-time pursuit? Because I know, isn't your brother also a musician as well?
Yeah, he is. Really, he was the biggest influence on me of anything. He's 2 years older than me. He was the intrepid kind of record seeker once we got to that age. I just basically followed him.
Yeah.
I wish I could say I was this like awesome leader, of men or whatever, but it was Dan.
Yeah.
And my tastes were pretty different from him, but I tended to just listen to the stuff that he listened to and follow his lead a lot because I was a little brother. We played in a couple little ensembles that we made together along the way, and eventually we wound up going to the same college, and we played in a band or two. We played in a couple bands out there together, one where I was a drummer and then later he was the drummer. And so that was kind of a big thing. My parents didn't really push it at all, but they allowed it, but we had to buy our own instruments and stuff like that. It wasn't, we shoveled walks to get a drum set.
Yeah. Well, I'm not too familiar with that. Minnesota, it has, like in the Midwest region either, like how is that culture grown up there, and what can you pull from that Midwest culture, that you can incorporate into your music comparatively to like West Coast or East Coast sound?
Right. I think a lot, and there was always kind of a strong arts thing in Minneapolis. Don't know why, but it was it just kind of had a cultural vibe all the way around. Every which way, it was very progressive. Don't know why. There's something about music, especially I think, where you're kind of driven into the, kids have to go into the basement in the wintertime and you can't really come out. You just have to figure out some way to screw around in the basement. And I think there's a lot of like drum sets and, acoustic guitars, dad's acoustic guitar, whatever, sitting down in the basement in Minnesota. And because I remember everybody I talked to was, that was a musician when I was coming up. And they would always say, the reason that there's a lot of creativity in Minnesota, and it really is a lot there, is because you're just forced. There's nothing to do. You can't go outside for 8 months. It's bitter, and so all you can do is you're forced to figure out little projects. And then another thing I think that is in my day, and this is going back to the 80s when Minneapolis was kind of en fuego, like we had like a ton of cool bands coming out, Prince, Husker Du, The Replacements, it just really a lot of cool bands. And to me, I think another big part of that is back in those days before the internet, we were very isolated. You know, like in order if you wanted to learn about a group, you had to buy the record, and that's that's an expensive barrier to learning about anything. And so I remember just I had these fantasies about what New York, where you are. I had fantasies about what the music scene in New York was like, and it was insane, and the shows were incredible in my head. And so then as I was, making up my music and trying to figure out what I was going to do, I always wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be like, that I was going to be, try to be as cool as everybody was out in New York, And so I was like inventing songs and, you know, just everything I was doing, I was trying to like be as cool as the bands that I imagined but couldn't see. And so I think that also just that like unknown factor kind of added into the Minneapolis energy. It was like we felt like we didn't even know what we were up against, so we were just trying to make cool stuff.
Well, that's cool though. It's like it's a good and bad thing. Well, it's like you're not trying to be anybody else. You may have the vision of like what that could be in New York, or
Right.
LA, but then it's like you can come up with your kind of like your own stuff, your own sound, your unique voice, which that's true art. Is like if you really build your own voice off of maybe some influences, but then evolve into your unique expression of life. So it's like,
Yes, exactly. I agree with that entirely. My brother is he's a creative force, and he's a musician as well. And I always found that he his influence on me was so great. But when he became like a real serious songwriter and was doing amazing things, I found that if I listened to him, that might have been the worst thing I could do at times, because then I would just start imitating him,
mm,
and I would lose my own voice. And a lot of times throughout my career, I've felt like it was important to me to not listen to pop radio and not just basically not taste too much popular stuff, because it, I felt like it would kind of damage or dilute or diverge my my unique self, which is kind of all I had. I always felt like.
yeah, yeah. Well, if anything, what did you pull from though? Like either sound wise or anything else cultural wise. It could have been books, film, literature, um, anything that really pulled you into like I want to lean this kind of this way into sound, or that, or this is kind of like how I would love to construct a song or something like
Oh,
that.
sure, yeah. One thing that happened to me is just through the luck of by choosing drums when I was in fifth grade. It could have been trumpet or piccolo or whatever, but I chose drums. And then just being competent, just by being competent, like a good drummer, a competent drummer, it's like gold, and so like and so consequently, like there was all these opportunities to be in bands. And so by the time that I was in, well, definitely a junior in high school, I was playing downtown. I was playing at 7th Street and First Avenue and all these clubs. And so that was a huge influence on me, was just being surrounded by rock,
Mm.
like, and amps, and seeing what people were doing. And I'd see, I'd warm up for bands from England and see what they were up to, and so
Yeah.
so I would say just that kind of or just that happenstance of me becoming a drummer led me down this rock world. And it's just like, and then the rest of my life was just kind of saturated with distortion and cool guitars, and stuff like
Nice.
that. It's just kind of like, so that was just that for me culturally, that was just a thing. And so all the interesting artists that I met just happened to be rockers, you know.
Hmm. Well, I guess yeah. That it's like just being in the scene will you'll pick up, you know, a variety of influences, and you get a new perspective on different sounds and how people are composing their own stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just I guess being there. Yeah, yeah. That's um. So myself, I've kind of started late. I found the camera late, and I'm originally from Boston, by the way, which I've read. You went to college there, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's for me, it's been like an evolution, a bit later evolution, and but I'm always fascinated with people who like a new music or a new art was like that was it onward, at an early age, and they've succeeded at this high level for a while. So it's I'm always fascinated with that because I've been transient a bit, but in my interest,
Yeah.
but but I guess recently I found more of my medium and my identity, and I'm not afraid to call myself an artist now. But before I was like, kind of always internalized and timid of
Isn't
saying,
that funny? Isn't
yeah,
that funny? Yeah, because it feels pretentious at first. I remember when uh, when my band back in the '80s was Trip Shakespeare. That was my group, and we then we started when we started having a relationship with a manager or with a label, then it would always say artist, like the art, that would be like the label underneath where you could sign your name or something. It would say artist. And I remember always thinking like, I'm not an artist, I'm just a musician. It's like, well, that's look at this pretentious thing. Now I claim it, and I am an artist. I'm trying to make people cry and make them happy, and I'm trying to change their outlook with the thing I do. It's like maybe I'm a more powerful artist than almost anything except film. Like I feel
yeah,
like film is like that's like the king of all the art because
mm,
it's visual, it's got photography that you do, it's got music that I do, it's got words that novelists write, and it's and then it's all mixed around and in stories. So anyway, yeah, you and me, we're artists for sure.
well, that's what I've been doing. Like I think you ever hear of the Criterion Channel? I've been studying up on it's a whole database of classic films. So I've been studying up on like Tarkovsky and Kurosawa films and
Oh wow.
epic
Yeah.
films because it's like the beauty behind them. And the visual language for me was like whoa, and it's it's like you're right. It's you have the music, the long shots of just long silent shots that maybe has some maybe like a delicate tone to it, and it adds a suspense. And when you add that the musical element to the visual language of the cinema, it adds more drama and motion. And I guess with your work, I guess maybe read in your more statement that you really try to go to evoke emotion as well, correct, in your lyrics?
Oh yeah. Yeah. um i I feel like that's kind of the game. That's that, or to me, that just that's it. That's the beginning and the end in a way. Is getting a feeling. Like if you can make a photograph that that makes people like go, oh my god, that sends me back, or that takes me to a emotion. That's something, right? And it's the same way in music. It's really easy to make a musical work that leaves no impression, that dissipates on contact. And so, but the thing that I'm always after is the, is giving people that feeling. And in a way, I don't care if it's laughing or crying or anything in between, but or longing. But that's what I always try to do. and it's just it's because the music that that moved me and that brought me in was these songs, these the ballads. It's funny. It's like I always was just I was this drummer and I wanted to rock out, and but really the songs that moved me and that motivated me were these kind of Orbison, you know, like crushing numbers of sadness and
Yeah.
you know, the rejection, all that stuff just crushed me. I remember I had these big feelings, and I'm sure you can relate. I bet anyone can relate. I had big feelings, even when I was little, you know, and so like the things that Orbison was saying about somebody leaving him forever and that it was the end of his world, you know, it's like that stuff that moved me when I was 5. I was like, yes, you know, it's like, damn, that sucks when someone that you know that you love so much leaves you. You know, like, you know, I can feel that. You know, it's amazing. So yeah, just been kind of chasing that whole vibe ever since.
It's kind of like, just like a common human language, music was. It's a, you can go to different cultures, globally, internationally, and what can bind a community is music. It's like, tribes people in villages, say in like Africa, or there's always, no matter what type of village or peoples you come across, there's always the local music they play. There's maybe a family song, and everybody gets together to enjoy music, and maybe even storytell as well. And I just find it's the common global language that we can all kind of unite us. It's
Right.
weird.
And
Yeah.
isn't it weird? I mean, that's like music. It's like, what's natural about music? I don't see anything. It's like, well, it's like, you know, you look and you see things. So like, it makes total sense that you would like want to make cool pictures that capture a thing you saw. Like that to me is not a leap of imagination. But the idea that like everyone is like, yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to hit stuff at a certain, time, and then we're going to sing in these scales, like that seems really like kind of fabricated or very contrived. Like there's a lot of levels of like, we have to all agree on what scales we like to hear, like each, and then what time, like how we like to hear the rhythm and stuff like that. That's weird. I mean, that's a kind of a big construction that we all agree on across every, culture. Weird.
Well, I think well, you could stem back from when we're, ancient man. We initially, that I guess it would be the evolution of communication, right? It's initially started with the paint, simple cave drawings. Visual.
Mhm.
There's the visual language, but then when we evolved and we started vocally communicating, and then there was a need to, you know express in a different manner and communicate in a more vocal manner. So then yeah, I never looked too deeply into the history of like music, but I assume it's like it started when we evolved our communications methods from cave drawings, the visual, to, I guess, when we were able to adapt vocal communications. But and that's where my hypothesis, or slightly educated guess, would stop. But
Yeah. Well, it's yeah, all I know is that it's just like, to me it's just like, it's bizarre. It's like, it's kind of like, it's not, it's, I can understand why birds sing, and I can understand even why humans sing, but like why we all like play drums and like, it's just we take it a little further, it's like it's pretty highly developed thing that we do.
so, like, talking about like your headspace, or I guess your writing process, I guess, like, what headspace do you go into? Like, what do you tap into to start, flowing and getting inspired, I guess?
Coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coffee, big time. Morning, to me, like, one of my biggest tricks is when I'm serious about writing, um, then I get on a roll, and it's becoming like the major thread of my life. You know, like it's like, yeah, I do my other stuff and I survive, and then I got to get back to writing because it's going on right now for me. And then I try to get to it as close as I can to when I'm dreaming. You know, like literally, if I could wake up, you know, have an instant injection of, you know, like some kind of like chemical injection of coffee directly into my veins and be sitting there with a pen, you know, in front of my journal, that would be the most efficient way for me to harvest music out of me. But it's just coffee, waking up early, not doing anything until I write, and just make it, and being at a keyboard, a music, a key. And I used to be a guitar until it took me frickin' half a century to figure out that piano is totally the way to go. You got to write music on a piano.
Cool. Yeah.
It works so good.
Well, then I'm curious too, like how do you transfer that emotion you envision on the page, or you know, and then maybe play around with the piano and then communicate that or transfer it to you know, the band as well? How do they pick up on that, or how is that like dynamic work, I guess?
Well, for me, because I'm not really like I don't build songs as a texture. I don't build songs as a loop. You know, I build songs more as along the lines of like a folk song or a Stephen Foster song or something where, you know, you've got like your grandma could play it on piano, you know, like you could play it for some little kids and they'd get it, you know, songs, just regular old, you know, that kind of song. And because I do it that way, I don't know, that means that like when I bring it to the band, it kind of stands there on its own. We can all just like look at it and start kind of dividing it up and see like, all right, who's gonna and then in terms of how we arrange things, because we've got no drummer, but because also we've got one of our kind of like shared goals with the band is to be a groove band to some degree, is to like to try to, with these odd instruments we have, to make it groove to some, as best we can. And so one trick, like a fallback or a beginning point, is just to kind of say, well, how about on this one, banjo plays the backbeats, and you know, guitar, you know, will do a riffy thing, but then bass is the kick drum. You know, so we like kind of dividing up into the pieces of a drum set that make a groove a little bit, you know, and then we like vary off from that. But that could be a beginning way to like just figure out how to flesh it out.
Yeah, yeah. I was always curious about how, you know, bands operate, I guess, because you know, for me, I'm generally just solo. It's just me and the tool I have, which is the
Yeah.
camera. Or I love to write poetry and write myself in the morning. I have I've with this whole pandemic, I've had a steady, structured routine now. Morning, IV of coffee, and yeah, I love coffee myself, and you gotta spark the brain, man.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm always curious, like how like group dynamics are, and how like a composition comes to be into from like a vision of maybe one person, and that you can all get on board with that, and then kind of hear the same thing and then produce an album across that too. It's always a really interesting process.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And I think with our group, you know, we just muddle towards it. You know, like we rarely just kind of learn a song and then go play it the next gig. You know, it's almost always they they percolate and they develop over time. We add the layer of singing together, and that usually kind of once we got that going, then it's like that makes it exciting, and then it gives us energy to do more work on how the under part, you know, the instrument part goes.
Mm.
You know, it's one thing with musical groups, I'll say is that, you know, a huge trick is you have to simplify. It's like if everyone does the things that they think are cool, which is great. Everyone's like trying to get across these cool ideas. But if everyone does all the things that they think are cool that they've thought of, there's gonna be no idea on there at all. It'll be a cloud of cool things kind of coming at you. And so ultimately, it's like in mixing music, muting things is like this powerful thing. But it can be a difficult thing to do with a group, but
Mm.
everyone has to simplify
Yeah. Yeah.
to a radical degree.
That's kind of like my brain too, because I have all these like ideas, but then it's like I have to simplify it, and it's like generally the best result when cut down all the fat, you know.
Oh,
It's,
of course.
you know,
You think of the great images, and you know, like some of them are like cool because they're so complicated, you know, like, but a lot of them are just like, oh, it's the one where the woman is lying on her side, she's lit from the front, and her hair's going back, and she has one necklace, you know, like a diamond, you know. It's like
yeah.
it's simple, you remember that, you know.
What did you ever like go by like or personal philosophy, or were you ever like kind of spiritual, or did anything kind of like externally kind of guide you through this journey, or like I don't know, like
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I'm not religious. I don't believe in God. I don't have faith in a religious sense. I I'm here to report that you know, I don't think that makes anybody any less moral by any means. You know, and the most
mm,
religious people are often, you know, totally amoral in other ways. So it's like,
oh yeah.
anyway. But
Mm,
that said, um, I I in order to continue in life, I find personally, it's my observation that people need to have faith in something. Because if you just build your whole life on evidence and what you've observed as a little mini scientist, there's not a lot to believe in. You have to like there has to be something that you choose to believe in. And somewhere along the line, I realized, oh my God, it's like basically music is the thing that I've placed my faith in. It's the
mm,
thing I believe. It's me. I can't even question it, because if I look at it too closely, it doesn't hold up. I
mm.
just do it. And so it's what I believe in. It's my faith. And so that's kind of my deal, is I just believe in music. I can rationalize it and say that I want to move people, but really it's I want to make music that's moving,
Mm.
and then I want to present it to people, and I hope that it moves them. I definitely want to connect with people, but I can't necessarily even say that I'm doing it for them. I'm doing it for this relationship I have with music.
Mm.
I want to make music.
Well, that's, I guess, like at a broad statement, kind of like, or as myself as a external observer would say, yeah, that is art too, right? It's like you're creating. Well, an artist's job is to take that internal, you know, expression or the subconscious and portray it into a medium they choose, or chooses them, and put it into the public sphere. I mean, if you just create and you don't put it out there, it's not really art, right? It's just personal, like therapy maybe, but
Yeah.
art needs to be out there in public to, you know, it doesn't matter, music, visual arts, photography, you know, writing, if you don't put it
Okay. So
out there.
here's a twist on that I think is interesting. I totally agree with what you're saying, but I think it goes even further.
Hmm.
Um, like if you it's not only that you and this is another one of those things where it's this giant construct. It's like I think of music as just this really complex construct that we all agree on, you know, like that. Yeah, well, here's what we do, you know, like we hit drums and do all this stuff, and then we sing in like intervals that are mathematical, you know, this. It's this huge construction we've agreed on. But another thing, and it's very natural. We also all agree that it's totally natural, and it is. There's something supernatural about it, totally natural. Another weird thing is that as an artist, as a musician, but also as a photographer, it's like, I don't care how rich you are, you want to sell your stuff. And it's like, and if you look at like the most successful, artists that have just, they have money piled to the skies, and they don't need any more money, but they really want to sell tickets to their movie. They want to, like, and it's just this natural thing. And I think that that's been going on for a hell of a long time too, is that for some reason, it's like people want to succeed in selling their art too. There's no rationale that like covers all the different people that, like why Taylor Swift so badly still wants to have a #1 record,
Yeah.
but she does, it's like.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, to spin off that. Like, yeah, it's, well, being, experienced the New York scene, it's like, it's all business. It's all about selling. It's like, I'm like, in hyper competitive too. It's like, I'm like, yeah, it's like that. I don't know where it comes from. Has that always been like? Has that
I think
always
it has.
Been?
Yeah. I think like Salieri wanted to outsell Mozart or whatever. It's like,
yeah.
I think that's the part that crushed him. Like I think that the commerce aspect of music is almost as tied up in music as the like singing to be noticed for romance aspect. It's like,
yeah.
It's just as natural, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, I have never thought about it too deeply in that way, but I'm gonna have to look into that now. Like the I guess history of like competitiveness, or just trying to make ends meet with art. But that's
Well, I mean, it's like, I
fascinating.
remember when I was when I had a record label in the early 90s. And I knew rationally that none of the sales would, like, the money would never like come to me. It's like there's like no money at all in record sales, because it would all get recouped by the record company. It's just like, it's all set up. And yet I really wanted to look and see that we had sold records. That meant more than anything to me. I wanted that but I had no like personal benefit from it at all, except for some reason you just really want, like, you want people to demand your, I don't know if it's it seems like, but also it seems like there's like the transaction is important. Not sure why.
I think yeah, the play off that is like, I think we all want our work to be accepted, and like,
Yeah.
by like in in the contemporary markets, and and it's based on, say, sales, or and traction on that level. It's like, is my music successful if I don't sell, or do people like my stuff? Nobody's buying it, and you get that self-doubt because there's a need. The artist needs the public to accept their work,
Yeah.
and that's a weird relationship.
Isn't it weird? I think it's weird. It's like, you would think, okay, it's like, I'm an artist and it should be just enough that I can just, like, I paint my pictures, I put them on my wall, I love them. Good job, Matt. I'm done. I've done my work here. But no, it's like, I've got to get it out. I got like I got to see if people actually like buy it off the wall. It's like, why? It's like,
I guess it's partially of course ego. It's like this
yeah,
ego,
yeah.
and I don't know. That sounds like a thesis paper to me. That, like,
Mm-hmm.
like, I have to investigate that question. Like, why as artists do we, if we try to pursue it, at a certain level, that we want to see the results from the public results, and i.e. monetary result as well.
Yeah, some kind of commerce thing going on.
And speaking of that relationship, or you know, bands v audience, how do you what do you prefer? Like, I don't know if you prefer or whatnot, if that's the right term, but like, do you really like performing live? Like, and like, how's that comparatively to say recording or in studio stuff? That process. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny because that to create a really cool recording, to create that document, that's kind of the highest challenge. That because like when you're playing live, you can exert all these, like, your charisma and your voice, and like, and you've got your thing, your show going, and like, it's kind of easy, like, once you've got things figured out, to have a good show. But it's really hard to make a good recording, I think. Or, it's hard to make it. If you think of all the shitty albums out there, it's like, it's really hard. I guess it's hard to have a good band too. But
Well, yeah. Well, that's funny because it's like, say like, if I knew, like, I've seen an artist, a specific artist, say live, and they're like, it was, they just totally sound different on, in a record. Or if like, I really dug their record and then saw them live, it was like disappointing. It's like,
yeah,
maybe it was like they needed that production, the engineers behind them. And live, it's like, I'm kind of thinking of more of like rap groups I listened to before, and it was
oh
like,
yeah, like rap. I
yeah,
find rap, like, that's the biggest difference between, like, how awesome it is recorded. Like, rap can be like just hilariously awesome. It's just like, oh my god, this is the best. And then you see it live, and it's just like, yeah, to me, it's
like,
more boring. It's like, I don't groove on live rap, but like, everybody grooves on a great rap. The hip hop, that's, a great record.
oh yeah, no. So that's what I was like pulling from. I was like, yeah, yeah, that can be, you see the difference, but I mean, but with I going wrapping back to your work, like, I just listening to, you know your new album, it's just, it's fascinating. I probably will pick up one of your records and actually play it on as a vinyl, because I feel like it would add to the experience of listening to your sounds,
Yeah,
because it totally moved me. Like, and just listening, I'm very receptive, and it was just like, kind of, my body was already moving to it, and just already felt, your lyrics, and the banjo, and the harp. It was just really, music that, in this, more digital age, that I haven't heard recently. That really had that depth of the complexity, but in the sound, but also with the, like you said, this.
pared back as well.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, it's so cool, like, when you
Thanks.
find, um just like, new music for me, or discover new sounds or new art. And that's why I like doing this aspect of things, is talking to creators like yourself. And it's cool. It's a cool process, and I've been fortunate to evolve, or, call myself, finally figure out and say I'm an artist, and to connect to other artists on the same kind of level. So I don't know, man. Like, so where do you, like, see, I guess, this project evolving? Of course, you have the obstacles now, and the contemporary state of things.
Yeah,
Do you,
yeah.
like, where do you see the project evolving, or do you see ever, like, venues and contents going back the same way, or things are going to change? Are things going to
Oh,
change on a totally different level?
God, I sure don't know. I'm,
Mm.
we're booking gigs, out in kind of August, September, October, out and then, and I don't even know what's going to be safe at that point, And so I'm not sure what circumstances are going to force on us, but I think as soon as we get this disease defeated, I think things are going to just come back just like they always was. Just like, you know, when the Beatles played with two guitars and, or, you know, and a bass and drums, you know, I think, and it hasn't changed all that much for, you know, more than half a century. It's just been just kind of, and before that, it was acoustic guitars, you know, and a bass and whatever, and a little bit of percussion, you know, and that's kind of what we do. But so I don't know. I mean, I think it's just gonna, as soon as it can snap back to people playing instruments, plucked and otherwise, you know, like I think it's just gonna snap back to that as soon as it's safe. That's what, and that is what our group is gonna do. You know, we're in this cycle right now where like we've got a manager booking agent named Mike. He's great, comical guy, and he just keeps booking dates, and then we get kind of closer to him, and all the venues cancel them all, and then we keep booking more, and so we're just like cheerfully, like, you know, we keep, just today we were like, yeah, sure, we're open for that date, yeah, we'll do October, you know, that, and so
Yeah.
you know, so we're just like, we're just kind of all gearing up, you know, kind of getting locked and loaded for whenever it's safe, whenever it feels safe to go up.
Yeah. Have you guys been doing like Facebook Live or just live stream stuff, or get
We
in on
did,
that? Or
the day of our record release was March 20th, and we did our show got canceled. It was that was basically when things were just kind of going away. And so on that night we did a streaming show that's, you can go see it, anyone who wants to, it's on YouTube. And so just look for Matt Wilson, Minneapolis Matt Wilson, something like that, you know, and then you can see our streaming show. It was a super fun show. I mean, it was like, I think we knew it was like our last kiss, you know, and so you know, we made it count. It was super fun. And so people can get a taste of what we're like. We just, we did it from, Fela is our harp player, and she teaches harp. And so she has this room that is just full of harps, because every once in a while there's a whole army of like little kids playing harps in there. So the room is kind of magical and awesome. It's just filled with harps that are just all resonating. And so that's where our show is. And that was our last taste of streaming. And since then we've just kind of been separate, but constantly booking dates that get canceled.
Yeah.
It's like like an existential thing where, like, you know, you Sisyphus, you know, kind of getting up the mountain, and the rock rolls back down. We're doing that with a smile.
You need to kind of figure out a way to still hold like a festival, or maybe not even just a festival, maybe just to start off with like a show, maybe, like, but then measure out, like, everybody has to stand 6 feet apart or something. But because I miss that, like, live. Oh, like, I loved capturing live performances.
Oh God, of course.
You know, it's like I miss that energy, and like I'm like,
oh, with everyone 6 feet apart, the photographs are gonna suck.
yeah, it's like I love doing this, but it's like I still miss the in-person energy of a live performance, and hearing new sounds I've never listened to or heard before, and capturing those performers in the stage, and in that moment of, you know, purity for them, because it's so cool. And I pick up on that energy, and it's like, now I'm like, you know, it's almost end of April. I'm like, I need to go back to it, you know.
Oh my God, you must. Yeah, I'm sure.
But well, how do you think, I guess, to kind of maybe wrap it up, but how can we get back to, like, how can we overcome this, like, darkness, you know, globally? Can we do it through, like, connecting like this, or listening to music via, like, say, Spotify or internet, or how can we as a species get through it through art and culture, I guess, through,
You know, it's funny. I don't know how like live music is gonna survive, or like, or you know, like I'm very frustrated by that question.
Mm.
One thing I was going to say before it was that you know, that making a record is kind of like that's the ultimate challenge, but the ultimate joy for musicians too. That, you know, is that live show, and
Yeah.
that's really the number one thing that I always wanted, was to have people feel as like overjoyed as I did, you know, the first time I lost my mind at a show, you know. So
Yeah.
I want that for everyone, and I don't know how that's gonna, how we're gonna get that back. But it's funny, like this, you and me talking on Zoom or whatever, the various platforms. I've seen my parents' face more in the last month just than I had prior to that. And my whole family, my extended family, we get together every single week, and just
Mm.
because it's easy. And so in a way, this technology, um, it, it's forced us into this technology to realize, hey, it's not so bad. Like I feel like I know you,
Mm.
and it's just on TV here, but it's, you know, it's real.
Yeah.
It's through faces, and I get you, and so it's like, I don't know. I feel like there is a plus side. I feel much more connected to a lot of people,
That's
even people. Yeah, I feel more connected to a lot of people just because this technology has been forced at us, and now I find myself just like hitting that button on Google Hangouts a lot, just like, you know, wanting to just see that face.
that's true. There, it's like, we're forced to reconnect with our foundational families, and then maybe old friends we never, or friends, lovers who we never caught up with, and it's cool. And then, and actually, this is kind of my underlying reason. I love connecting with people, and that's why I started doing this series. And now it's in April, I've had so many interviews like this because everybody wants to talk and connect.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's cool. It's there's always need to hear other people express their you know uh, I guess emotions, because this is a major event most of us haven't experienced, of course, since there's my generation and younger, and you know the generations before, like maybe our parents or grandparents were, you have World War II, you had World War One, and
depression.
but you know this generation, recent generations have never had like a global, you know um
Threat,
something
disaster,
to
doom.
get behind,
Yeah,
a global kind of unifying, I guess, yeah, disaster, I would say, but yeah, yeah. So now it's like with technology, we're all kind of binding together with via this method of communication. So I guess this is another step of evolution, like from the cave drawings to vocalizations of communication to music, and now this is another form or
yeah,
extension.
yeah.
I don't know, but if that's too kind of trippy, but anyways, man, oh, thank you so much for taking the time. I don't want to take too much more of your time. Like I could go into, I love, just going into trippy, like heady conversations. So
Mhm.
we
Yeah,
could go on forever. So
I
I don't
know
want
you
to.
bring it out. You bring it out in me. That's for sure.
Cool, cool. And that's it. That's kind of what I like, man. It's just kind of free flowing with things, see where we go. um just have people kind of exposed to new mediums too. So like if you would just want to, like, I'm not really like a podcast or live radio show, but um if you want to say like where people could discover your work, that'd be cool too.
All right. Yeah. I've got there's a lot of Matt Wilsons out there, you know. It's a pretty generic name.
Yeah,
So my website is Minneapolis Matt, because I'm the
cool.
one from Minneapolis. So minneapolismatt.com, and that's where you can find a record. That's the number one thing. You can buy it. There's a link there to our record company, and you can just order it straight to your door, and you get a download with that. So that I would want everyone to just have this record one way or another. If I could just give them out, then I'd do that.
Yeah, yeah. Now, did I see on the label they're printing vinyls as well, or is that
Oh yeah, yeah,
cool?
yeah. It's a big gatefold. You know, it's nice. It's got all the words written
Well, I'll
down.
have to. I certainly would probably pick one up, or I'll pick one up soon because yeah, it's a few days of listening and being exposed to it. It kind of brought my mood up, and I was just made me kind of dance, move, and
Well, that's
it's been
cool.
yeah,
It's funny that that's people have kind of said that there's something about it that harmonizes well with the pandemic world. I don't know why.
interesting.
Maybe this is my world. This is where I belong.
True. Yeah, it's like some people like, oh, what's going on? But yeah, like I know some people like introverts or like super creative people just like, yeah, this is my world anyway. It's like
Yeah,
it really hasn't changed.
but
It's like
I still go down in the basement, and just do my thing.
yeah, especially like musicians in the studio or like I know programmers like coders are just this is this is normal. Like I'm just gonna
Yeah.
be locked in front of the screen coding away. So it's like it, it's weird, but now we're all kind of placed into it. But once again, thank you so much for the conversation. Can I ask one thing? I like to like I've been trying to capture like with the series I try to capture backstage, but with
Yeah.
this I'm like try to capture an image
Do it.
via Zoom, and we'll see what I come up with. Maybe I'll create a like I think I might try to together like a show of like if I capture people in this state and when things go back to normal I can blow them up in prints and like say this is how we
I
got through it
I
or
love
something.
that idea. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see, man, but oh, thank you so much, man. And
Hold on. Wait a
oh,
second. There you are from my house. I'll send you that.
cool. Yeah. So yeah, man, thank you so much once again, and I hope everybody on